City of Stevens Point Historic Preservation Design Review Meeting, recorded May 12, 2021.
We will begin May 12th, 2021, 2 p.m. You want to take the roll, Adam?
Sure. Siebert?
Here.
Jennings?
Here.
McComb?
I'm here.
DeBush?
Here.
Scripps is excused. Malepsky?
Here.
And Munich.
Here.
All right, we got a quorum.
I think I should probably excuse myself from number 2. Adam, you want to run it?
Sure. So the second item on the agenda is the election of a chairperson for this commission. So it's this time of the year again with new members on the commission to appoint one of you as chairperson. So staff would be looking for a motion to appoint one of you as chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Tim Siebert. Tori James.
I'll
Okay.
second Mary McComb.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, motion adopted. Chair Siebert, this is your meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Okay, number 3 is to elect a vice chairman. So I guess I would entertain a motion for a nomination for vice chairman in the event that I can't be here for whatever reason. Nominations?
I'll nominate Mary McComb. I know she runs meetings.
A second, please.
Second.
Mr. DeBush, thank you.
I second, yes.
Any other nominations? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of Ms. McComb being the vice chairman, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks, everybody.
Congratulations. Okay, number 4 is the report of the April 7th meeting. Are there any changes or discussion on the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept. Anybody?
A motion to approve.
Okay, Ms. Jennings, second, please. Second, please. Mr. DeBush, are you seconding?
Yes, I second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, carried. Those are the minutes. Number 5. Adam, you want to talk about Mr. O'Meara's presentation or request? I'm sorry.
Absolutely, Chair. So this request is more of a two-part request. The first of which is to demolish the second-story porch that's situated in the rear of the building, shown where my cursor is right now. And then with the removal of the porch, the applicant is also seeking to replace the second-story door with a window as well, given that there wouldn't be a purpose for having a door on the second floor that doesn't lead to anything. So according to the applicant, one of the prime reasons for why he's seeking to demolish the porch is due to the requirements that he would have to follow from a building code standpoint in order to construct a new porch. And what I mean by that is namely how the porch is constructed right now is off of anchor joints, and that currently does not meet present day building code requirements. So should the applicant seek to construct a new porch, there would have to be vertical supports running from the floor of the porch all the way down to grade level. And from a staff perspective, we feel that should there be vertical supports, that would more shield the more limited architectural features that do exist on the north facing wall, namely the brick masonry about from grade level up to about 1 foot off grade. So overall, staff does recommend approval of the demolition and design review subject to the conditions shown on your screen. And the applicant is available on the call should any questions or comments exist from the commissioners.
Mr. O'Meara, you want to make any comments?
Yes, The porch was added on way past because you can see the whole little roof trim below it. It was just nailed right up, nailed onto the existing. Right now, we're fearing that it could collapse, and we thought having 2 4x4s going straight down from the corners wouldn't enhance the building at all. And so we are asking to take it off reluctantly, mostly because it's in imminent danger of collapse.
All right, thank you. Anybody, any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. O'Meara?
Just a curiosity question. This is Tori Jennings. Your house is fabulous. I mean, this is what you typically see on student rentals. Was this ever a rental in the past?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I would entertain a motion then to accept the staff's recommendations for the dismantling of the porch.
This is Troy Jennings. I'll motion to approve the request by Michael O'Meara for a demolition and design review to remove the porch.
And this is Mary. I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, carried. Thank you, Mr. O'Meara.
Thank you.
Tim, may I interrupt you just a minute?
Sure.
I guess my question is regarding the fact that I'm an alternate, so can I vote? And the other question is obviously, because Mike lives down the street from me and I'm also in the historic district, on a situation like this, could I or could I not vote? So a couple questions.
No, you can comment and question and all that stuff, but because you're an alternate, you can't vote.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, let's see, where are we here? Number 6, I think, Mr. Kuhn, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. You want to go ahead and talk about Mr. Bukowski's?
Sure, absolutely. So this request is to construct a pergola at Arbuckles over the existing open air patio that they have, kind of indicating where, shown where my cursor is right now. So the applicant has been working with community development staff over the last few weeks now in order to lay the groundwork for this request, namely the combination of the 2 parcels, the Arbuckles parcel and then the open patio parcel into one in order to complement this proposed pergola. The applicant has been working with the commercial building inspector to kind of get a grasp of what building code requirements would be in store for constructing this pergola. But in short, the image on the upper right-hand corner shows a concept of the type of pergola that they're envisioning, and then the lower corner shows how it would be connected to the building itself. So overall, staff does recommend approval for 2 primary reasons. The first of which is that the color of it having more of a black finish does complement the existing fencing that's situated next to the building that's separating the patio space. And then likewise, it does complement the existing light fixtures within the patio space as well. And the second point of reason that I should state too is one of the big requirements for a structure like this per the commission's design guidelines is making sure that any structure that's proposed, any addition that's proposed, that it's at a comparable scale, that it doesn't overpower or diminish the height, the architectural features, the more historical element of the historic building itself. So the Arbuckles building itself. And given that the pergola will not be as high as what the historic building is, it'll end roughly about where the sill line is between the first floor and the second floor, that staff does feel that this proposed pergola would not diminish any historic or architectural features currently found on the building itself. So staff would recommend approval subject to the conditions shown on your screen. Then likewise, the applicant is on the call too to answer any questions.
I guess I have one. I'm just curious as to how deep this pergola goes from the street back. How far does it go?
It will be, if you look at the doorway on their patio, it will be right on the left side of the doorway, and it will be 20 feet back. So
20
it's 22 by 20 feet. So it really won't start until past the doorway. So about 10 to 15 feet off the street.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Bukowski? Okay. Seeing none, again, I would ask for a motion to accept the staff's recommendations on the building of the pergola. Anybody?
This is
I move
Mary,
to
so
accept.
move.
Okay, Mary Macomb approves. Mr. Bush seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes. Let me see here. Number 7. Request from Mr. Buza for a design review to install a door at 1043 Union. Mr. Kuhn?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. So this request, as the commission recalls, the applicant did come before this commission last month to more so for the second story addition that they were proposing on top of the building located at 1043 Union Street. Now, the request before the commission this afternoon is recertification or reapproval of a design review certificate that was granted back in 2019. And part of that design review certificate called for the addition or the construction rather of a door on the west side of the building off of Union Street. So overall, staff is supportive of this request, namely because as you can see on the picture here, the 4 pictures here, this is what the building used to look like back in its, before the current use, when it was intended more for industrial and manufacturing and warehousing purposes. Now you can see there's significantly more architectural detail on the building back in 2014 versus what it is today when the building has been going through renovations to complement the office use that currently exists. So given that the amount of architectural detail on the building has significantly decreased over the years, staff does not have concerns in terms of the installation of the second door, the west facade. And in addition, staff does feel that it would be better complement the office use of the building by installing a second egress door. So staff would recommend approval subject to the conditions shown on your screen.
Questions from commission members? Let's see, Mr. Buza, do you have any comments?
I don't believe he's on the call.
I thought he was. I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay. Then I would ask for a motion to approve the installation of the door based on staff's recommendations. Anybody? Anybody?
I move to accept staff recommendation.
Okay, Mr. DeBush, a second, please.
I'll second.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Tori Jennings, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Tori. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you very much. Let's move on to, I don't know how to say it, Keeler?
Kellier.
Kellier, thank you.
Yep.
For a re-roofing of 1140 Clark Street. Adam?
Thank you, Chair. So this request is to, as the chair mentioned, to re-roof the building located on the intersection of Strongs Avenue and Clark Street. Now, upon looking at the submittal from the contractor for the re-roof work, staff would recommend approval in large part because of the type of roof that's being installed and how it's going to be fastened. So as the applicant mentioned in the design review application, this re-roof would be mechanically fastened to the building itself, and staff would feel that it would better meet the goals and criteria for roofing requests, namely making sure that there's no water or moisture condensation building up within the building, that there's prevents any wind damage. So having it mechanically fastened, staff does feel that it better restricts the possibility, more lessens the opportunity of any wind damage, any rain damage, any hail damage that would exist versus more quote unquote traditional type of re-roofing requests. So staff would recommend approval, and as what was alluded to, the applicant is on the call and can answer any questions as well.
Okay. You care to make any comments, Rosalind?
No, as you guys know, we did do a lot of remodeling on the inside, and we want to keep it looking good for a long time. So fixing our roof will make the whole place just a better place. So thanks for your consideration and support.
And if I may, Chair, one of the items that's on the condition that it'd be worthwhile to mention is just there is a condition placed on the design review request, making sure that when the re-roofing takes place, that emphasis should be given to not hinder, not impact, not negatively alter the parapet wall that's located on the west here where my cursor is. So that's just something I wanted to point out and is stated as a condition as well, making sure that no architectural features of that parapet wall is damaged with the re-roof.
Okay. Is that agreeable to the owner?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for the owner? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion then to accept the staff's recommendations on the re-roofing project.
This is Tori Jennings. I move to approve the re-roofing of 1140 Clark Street with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Second, please.
This is Mary. I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, has carried. The re-roofing project can go ahead. All right. Then we have Mr. Greg Wright. A request for painting a mural on the east-facing wall of 945 Clark Street. Adam.
Thank you, Chair. So the request here is for, as the Chair mentioned, paint a mural on the east-facing wall at Father Fat's. So this shows an image on the left-hand portion of your screen, the wall for the intended mural. The image on the lower right-hand corner shows a former, I believe, it might have been an A&W at one point. I might be incorrect, but one of the things to point out is that there has been a significant amount of work done on this building, namely most recently, I believe in the early or mid 2000s when there were some improvements, namely for this rear portion of the building here where there was an expansion onto the building itself. So the image on your screen now, this was not included in the agenda packet since the applicant did finish up this design rendering after publication, but the image on your screen does show the intended mural request. So I'll actually kick it over to the applicant to discuss the concept of the mural a little bit further, but staff would recommend approval subject to the conditions as shown on your screen and within the staff report.
Greg?
Yeah, so we're here with, I guess, three proposals. I'll kind of say a quick version about all of them, but looking at murals to add to the collection that we're putting into the downtown, kind of following other communities' leads on the value of mural collections, specifically to re-energizing historic parts of communities and adding to commerce. We always try to do some sort of connection to the community culture in the process of this. So in this particular instance, we're taking the City of Wonderful Water slogan, which is in Iverson Park, and putting it into another visible spot in the community. Working with an artist out of Minneapolis, but that is a graduate of UWSP that does really good typography murals, which are very trendy right now. So excited to see something like this go in and have a lot of people Instagram our Wonderful Water slogan all over the community and add some marketing for the community at the same time.
Questions for Mr. Wright on this particular mural on Father Fat's? Somebody say yes? No? All right, then I would assuming that this is the mural we're painting, I would entertain a motion to accept the staff recommendations and the concept of the mural.
Mary, I so move. I like it.
Second, please. Anybody?
Second.
Joe, thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Let's move on to the second one then. This would be a mural on the north facing wall of 836 Main. Adam or Greg, either one?
Sure. So the image on the left-hand portion of your screen shows the north-facing wall as is, more of a white or cream-colored appearance. And you can see the image on the lower right. It's been consistent throughout. Kind of the one wall on the building itself that doesn't really have much architectural detail, just had the white, or again, the cream color paint, coating of paint on it. So the request is to paint the mural shown on your screen. And like I said, I'll have the applicant describe a little bit further the intent of the mural.
Sure. So this particular mural, in addition to just meeting the general goals of painting public art in the downtown, is part of a grant we received from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission that is doing public art to honor the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And so the way we are doing that is we are going to be painting 7 murals around the county that all integrate quotes from women from marginalized backgrounds that are inspirational quotes that artists transformed into murals. So this obviously is an RBG quote, that women belong in all the places where decisions are being made. What's exciting about this particular project is that there are going to be 19 women artists that are local artists all working on this project. The lead on the project is a woman named Jessie Fritsch, who does encaustic art, very successful artist in the community. But again, the idea is to kind of have this anchor mural to this larger women's suffrage celebration collection in the downtown, so we can use that to hopefully get people to go out to other parts of the county where these other murals will take place.
Is this supposed to be Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Yes.
Because I guess when we put the mural, just my perspective on it, when we put the mural committee together about 15 or 20 years ago, the basic criteria was that all of the murals had to do with point history. Obviously, she doesn't. Important person, I'm not denying that. But she obviously has nothing to do with point. I'm wondering if there is a woman that's local that we could use somehow. Greg?
I mean, I appreciate that. I think that this particular project is trying to talk about the national implications of women's suffrage. And so I think there is a place and time for national history to make its way into our community as well. I also know that one of the big things about this particular project is that one of the things we've heard in general is that there aren't as many women featured in our community art collection so far. There isn't as much women's empowerment messages told. And so I think part of what's, I guess, powerful about this project is the story behind who's going to be painting it and why they're painting it. Again, the specific grant we got was for doing more of a national celebration. So we're part of a larger project there commemorating this large historical event, but it does obviously have strong historical ties there too.
So somebody like Carrie Frost or Marianne Bannock would not meet the criteria of your grant?
It would be, I think we could definitely work in some of those names as the names in the background, but I think the way this grant particularly was, where our grant got accepted was using quotations from people who are national figures to be part of this project.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, this is Mary. I love the quotation, and I'm just thinking. I mean, I know designing these things is a big creative project, but I'm just wondering if the image could be Portage County women making decisions, or women who've been in or who are in decision-making roles. I like the quote, but I'd rather have images of Portage County women who are making decisions or in positions of leadership.
Carol?
I guess I agree with that. I mean, my first impression was that all the other murals have multiple people in them, you know, except for that one of Point Beer and it's on the side of the building there. But all of them have multiple people in them. And I think that obviously Ruth Bader Ginsburg is, you know, in the top of the news in the last year. There's no question about that. And her comment on women belong in all places, and you should put an S on that, decisions, because it in fact is decisions. But I think that, you know, it's about our more local history. And perhaps if you can include, I mean, obviously Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not the first woman on the Supreme Court. Sandra Day O'Connor was, and she was on the court 12 years earlier, if that's what this is speaking to. And I guess the other thing is, nowhere on there do I really see it's about women's suffrage on the anniversary of that. So, you know, if this is going to be about that suffrage vote, then it seems to me that should be indicated more clearly someplace, you know, and, you know, I would like to see more, in particular, if your original idea about the murals was to have more local Portage County, maybe even the state for that matter, that it would be more local / state or county. That's kind of my idea regarding it.
Any other comments?
I guess I have a question. Is it our role to decide whether or not we accept this with the image that's presented, or our role to whether to accept being able to paint a mural on a building?
I think as presented, that this image. Greg, you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so this project has been accepted by the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission as what they view as an appropriate project for what we're doing for this. So, you know, I guess what is, and I appreciate the question, Joe, but, you know, what's hard about these concepts is that there are various stages these processes go through. So we apply for grant funding with a specific project in mind, and they approve that project. We then have a selection committee that we have of local artists in the community to help us vet the art, you know, and then we'll wrap this process up with approval to put these murals on the building. I will say one of the things we've been having conversations about in the last couple of years, like Create Portage County is not connected to the historic mural project. The historic mural project is the city's project. The city is, we volunteered to be a part of that a couple of years ago, and we're told the city would still like to be in charge of that project. So the murals you're referencing that are, you know, the Riverman mural or the other murals in the library or that used to be on the post office, those are officially under the auspices of the post or the Parks Department. Our organization for the last couple of years has been trying to do more public art murals. We do try to do some sort of attachment to history because of the historic part of the downtown, or some nod to community culture. But this for us is really more about trying to grow more vibrancy in the community, trying to attract more people to the community, to take pictures with public art that will generate more business for local business owners, and to leave sort of a contemporary mark at the same time. And I think that's, you know, one of the things that where especially the RBG imagery and quote become really important is that this is the type of mural that people will travel to take their picture with. You know, that she's an inspirational figure, not just in our own community's history, but in obviously in an international way. And so these are the types of murals we do in hopes of drawing people to the community for Instagram opportunities and other photographs that will again activate the downtown in a way that we'll see more commerce long term. You know, I do appreciate everything you're saying about Portage County history. One of our pushbacks to that is that we have been asking people for years now how many historic murals are in the downtown, and people name 3, and there are 11. There's a point at which they started to blur together, and so what we're trying to do is actually leverage some new murals, and then we do some storytelling and some maps along with that to try to drive people to those other murals, so that we can use a mural like this that people are likely to drive to see, to then get them to see also the women of Portage County that already are on public art in the downtown, both on Rosalind's building and on the library underpass. And so, you know, again, I think this mural could be a really powerful addition to our collection. I think, again, it has the capacity to be a real draw to people. And, you know, and what I like about this too is that, you know, so they, in addition to the quote, and there are a couple of other typos in this that are being fixed as well, just so you're aware that we've caught those. The other quote that this mentions is is that quote you see in the corner, that I always feel the movement is almost of a mosaic. Each of us puts in one little stone, and it is a call to women of the community to be influencing history. So the focus of this mural is less on women of the past and more on women of the future who are going to leave their mark in the community. And so whether that's enough to meet your goals or not, that is the objective behind this particular mural. And again, I do think that there's going to be something really powerful about 19 women artists that are local working together on a mural to celebrate the 19th Amendment.
Can I make an aesthetic comment? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tori. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll take a different path with this, because I've often talked about the capacity to blend the modern with the historic. And in doing that contrast, it exaggerates or both sides of that benefit. I see this as inspirational work. And I also sense that a lot of work has already gone into this, but if this commission turns this down, we've just turned down the funding, basically, that CREATE has worked to get. Because I don't know if that's true or not, Greg, you'd have to comment, but I do know how grants work. So we're putting CREATE in a very difficult position. So I think it's inspirational. I can see it in that place. I'm not bothered by that it's not telling specifically Stevens Point's story, but I could parse forever the way in which the white history of Stevens Point is not telling the history of Stevens Point. So if we want to get into the weeds on that, I can do a little bit of that myself. So anyway, I'm ready to make a motion, but I think there's other discussion going on.
Can I ask an aesthetic question, Greg?
Sure.
I showed this picture to a couple of people, and the only comment that both of them made is the thing, the crown-like thing.
Yeah.
Makes her look evil. That was the comment both people made. I don't know if that can be modified somehow, but it makes her look evil, like something's growing out of her head.
Okay. I can
just
feedback along. You know, I know that in a different version, there were some slight changes to that particular thing. So maybe we can adapt something like that to make it look a little bit, even if it's just a color thing, so it doesn't look like it matches her hair in the same.
Yeah, it's growing right out of her skull or something.
Yeah. I appreciate the feedback, and we'll pass that along.
Any other comments? Carol?
I have one other comment. I guess going along with what the chairman said, I think it, because of the word dissent on her glasses, then you look at that black thing on her head and it looks like dissent. And I really don't think of Ruth Bader Ginsburg as a basic dissenter. Yes, she did in her opinions, but I really think of her as being principled. And I think the word principle, again, as Tim's comment, changing the image, it's just a more universal word that is positive as opposed to dissent. And the dissent goes with that structure that's on her head. So.
Great.
If I may, Chair.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead, Adam.
Awesome, thank you. One thing I just wanted to say, just so it won't go unnoticed, or at least give a little background as to how staff reviewed this request is a big component of the review is making sure that the painting guidelines from this commission are met, any applicable design guidelines as it relates to the actual painting of the mural itself. So that's one thing I just wanted to point out and make sure is addressed as well, that not only was the aesthetics of it portion of the request reviewed, making sure that the submittal is more so of a mural and not say of a sign, but making sure that those painting guidelines that the commission has are met as well, and which staff does believe it is so. So I just wanted to point that out too, just since there were some questions before about the extent of a review that took place.
I guess I would make one last comment based on what Carol was talking about. Your two quotes down in the lower left corner, add your own stone. That kind of runs afoul of the idea of dissent. If your own stone is to just object. I don't know if you get what I'm getting at here, Greg.
I mean, I do. I guess the dissent language is commonly tied to RBG because of the iconic work she did writing some of the most powerful dissents in court history. And so some of this may just be in my generation. She is considered to be a transformative figure because of her capacity to call out things that needed to be said. And I know that's where she really gets her initial her initial career launches, with her being one of the first people to really go after sexism in the workplace, right? And so so that's that dissent language and branding for a younger audience is not considered critical. It is, if anything, like what she's known for and why people value her, that she's really good at calling out things that shouldn't be happening. And so, I think that's, again, she's become an icon, right? Like, she's become more than just a Supreme Court justice. And a lot of the cultural aspects of that are captured in this particular mural, right? That where she was a powerful example was in her ability to call out norms and traditions and dissent, be dissenting in that sort of way. And so I think that's the theme behind this. And so, yes, I appreciate that adding your stone is a more positive version of that. But the idea is that sometimes the stone you're adding is in changing the way things are, not in just going along with what's already happening. And again, I think again, my understanding historically of the value of RBG in American society is exactly that she called out things throughout her career and helped to usher in an era that was more equitable for more people.
Any other comments?
My last comment. One of the things she said was, I don't say women's rights. I say the constitutional principle of equal citizenship stature of men and women. And I guess that it's on the positive side. I look at that language as being on the positive side instead of the negative. And as I mentioned, I understand she did a lot of dissents, but she also was a person that pulled people together. Obviously, that she was a good friend of Scalia, even though she disagreed with him many times. So I really think of her as being one that brings people together and is principled. So, obviously it is, and certainly it is a different generation, but there's some standard principles that one would hope would go across the decades and the centuries.
Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, this is Mary. I'm sorry, I'm a proofreader by birth. I assume you've caught Helen Keller, Greg?
Elizabeth Cady Stanton is spelled wrong. Ruby Bridges is spelled wrong.
Okay, yeah, it's hard for me to see the names. The other suggestion I would make is there a Wisconsin woman connected with the suffragist movement who could be put in one of the squares. I can't really see them all on my monitor, but something to add a little bit of Wisconsin stuff.
I will definitely bring back the suggestion of putting some local names in the stones. I think that would be well received by the artist. I don't imagine that they would have an issue with that, but I will definitely recommend that maybe both some local to Portage County names and some Wisconsin suffrage movement names could be worked in. I think that feedback I can I'll bring up the Crown. I will bring up the dissent comment as well. I will share these details with the artist.
Okay, thanks.
Tori?
Yeah, with what Greg just said, I guess I want to give a nod to the artists themselves, right? As well, this is their art, their interpretation, the meaning and the desire that they have in the message that they're trying to convey. So I guess I start to feel, I understand that we as a body have to critique these and make recommendations. At the same time, I'm looking at trying to think about what is the artist trying to convey, and we're like backseat driving, saying, you need to change this and you need to change that, and in doing that, we're changing the meaning that the artist is trying to convey. Or maybe I'm overthinking it, Greg. Is that not really how this works?
It's public art, and so I think public comments or people representing the public are I think they're fine.
I do. Like I said, feedback is important. It is one of the things that is always interesting about trying to get a public art process through is the number of people that have to be involved in it, right? And so there's a building owner that we had to get approval from. There's a selection committee we have to get approval from. There's a granting funder that we have to get approval from. There's you all and it is, and this is one of the challenges that we've, I think, talked about every time I've come to do one of these projects, is that art is subjective. Some of you are going to like art, some of you aren't. As we bring stuff forward, the next one as well may be one that some of you like and some of you don't. And I think one of the things that we are always trying to emphasize is that there is a moment in history happening right now in how public art is influencing, especially historic spaces and communities. And Stephen's point is on the verge of participating in that, but really is still behind the times in terms of the type of art that's coming out. And if you go to some of the peer communities we watch very closely, you're going to see murals very much like this, that are iconic, that have quotes or inspiration attached to them, that that draw tribute to specific people who are having influence in the world at large right now. And then what's always difficult about this process is that we are, again, that some of you might not like this piece of art, some of you may like another piece that we did better. We put a selection committee together of people that include nationally recognized artists, local community leaders, other people like that, so that we have people evaluating the art and getting it to a certain standard before we move something forward. And so, and that is, obviously we want you all to feel good about all the art we do, but to some degree, as has kind of been brought up, what we're here to make sure is that we're not painting art on historic brick. We're not, doing something that's actually signage. Like there are parameters that govern this process that we have to follow and meet to make sure we can do art in this way. And so we are very careful with the locations we select and how we select them, because we know we need to get through this particular committee, and there are rules that govern the decision-making process of this. But I do think it does get into some sticky territory to start to rehash out the quality of the art in this particular place, when the quality of art is already assessed by a selection committee that is chosen for their art credentials for that reason.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think this conversation has been what every community has ever talked about when it relates to public art. How involved should governing bodies of appointed officials get in the selection of art. And what's before you is, I think you folks have brought up some really good points. You know, essentially it's an up or down vote. We can't change anything. I will say, just from the community development side of things, we talk a lot about placemaking in Stevens Point, and with all due respect to the mid 2000s mural committee, you know, really important historic figures that were included as part of that. Of course, there are a lot of number of folks who were not included as part of those projects, but you don't see people going out of their way to come to downtown Stevens Point to take a selfie with Fred Schmeekley on Strong's Avenue, among others, and the 10 most influential, or anyone else like that. What this is doing is creating a placemaking activity where people are going to be coming to downtown, just like, you know, the Instagrammable moments with the Point Beer pint glass on the side of Galaxy Comics, or the Fox photo on Main Street. Or even the newest mural alongside Zest. Those are the murals that are getting the most activity, if you will, on social media. And that's an important piece because that's what brings a lot of folks to this community, or gives them something to do in this community. And this is yet another example of a placemaking activity that we should be pursuing. I think the discussion that we're not covering historic brick, it's a white wall that's been a white wall since the 80s, is a great point as well. You know, I'm very supportive of this project. I think this is a great mural and a great addition to the downtown area. But the vote before you today is an up or down at this point. If the vote is in the negative, could always appeal to the Common Council. That's, you know, it's something that this committee has gone through a few times in the past with denials. So that's my only 2 cents worth. I think it's a great project and would recommend approval.
Any other comments? Okay, Tori, you want to make your motion?
Yes, I'll move to approve the mural on the north facing wall of 836 Main Street.
Second, please.
I'll second that.
Oh, Joe, okay. Mr. DeBusch seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Now we turn to Greg Wright for, let's see, where are you going on this one? 1000 Main and 1008 Main. Greg?
Yeah, so one more mural we're looking at. This one's gonna probably have the same conversation. So this mural is a street art mural, pushes the envelope a little bit. It's going to be the mural that is probably the most photographed for anyone under the age of 30 mural in town once this is done. It's on the back of a building that is mechanicals and peeling paint. So it's what I would call an eyesore right now. What is cool about this mural, if you take a look at it, is all of the plants that are referenced in it are native species to the community. So there are fox flowers or foxgloves, goat's beards, the cardinal flower, hen of the woods, various, like I said, native plants that you see in the community that are integrated into like an adaptation that fits the street art vibe. There's a message in this about, there's recycling hands and eyes in the flowers to kind of make the emphasis about conservation and the role people play in the community in preserving a natural environment. Obviously, conservation has been a really, really strong and important part of our community's history. We have almost no public conversation about that. While we're in a very environmentally focused community, we have very little art in the community that shows that, outside of, Sculpture Park being located in a trail. And so this is, I think, an opportunity to really integrate that conservation and green community message into the downtown in an interesting way. The artist is John Kowalczyk. He's a Milwaukee street artist.
Any comments for Mr. Wright?
This is Tori Jennings. I love it. Are those chickens?
They're hens, hens of the woods.
I love this. So
Uh, Anybody else?
Peter Monk here. I like it too. I like that it really emphasizes the nature aspect of it, and plus, from like a street art sort of perspective, and something that's Instagrammable. Like I'm on Instagram all the time, way too much, and so I see people like doing like senior portraits and that sort of thing in front of things like this. People definitely be pinning this on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, all that. This is great.
This is Mary. I like this. It really does fit our location, I think, and it's sort of psychedelic, which is cool.
It does jump out at you.
Right.
Any other comments? Carol?
It is fun.
Anybody else? Okay, I would entertain a motion then to accept this as proposed. Staff recommendations? Anybody? Anybody?
Mary, so move.
Mary, move, okay. Mr. DeBusch seconds, I think.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, item number 12, Mr. Cook for design review on the existing awning that we talked about last month. Mr. Cook or Mr. Kuhn, anybody?
I can give a quick recap since there's some new commissioners. So last month, as the chair mentioned, this design review request was brought before this commission for comment and review. Some of the comments that were discussed were in part more so the continuation of the semicircular barrel awning through the reinstallation of the awning fabric. So after the meeting concluded, so the result of the meeting, I should say, was the commission voted to postpone judgment until to allow the applicant a chance to attend a future meeting to discuss either any intended revisions or improvements that he sought, or to in general discuss why he felt that the reapplication of the awning fabric would be appropriate. So included in the agenda packet was a letter that the applicant wrote to the commission discussing his feelings on the project. So I would actually kick it over to the applicant to discuss a little bit more of his thoughts, and then he would be available for any comments or questions that the commission has.
Mr. Cook?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I apologize for not being on here last month. Running a small business by myself, I got a little busy. I mean, we're really excited. We're moving our business. Our business has grown here in Stevens Point. We're moving it down on the square. We're trying to be one of the anchor stores down there on the square. The current awning that's on there has been, we figure right around 1987, it was approved at one time for the barrel awning to be put on that building. The framing and everything is in exceptional condition. The cost to replace the fabric, to update it, to make it look more aesthetic with the historic look of the building, we chose to go with the black color. We are not going to put a traditional sign on the building. We are going to use the awning to let folks know who we are and where we're located. We are doing an extensive interior remodel to bring the building back to its original condition of 1903. So we are really big believers in the historic presence of how the building is going to look and to be affected. And I don't know what else. I would say that the barrel type awning does really help. If you look at the picture, we do have an entry and exit point in the front of the store, and that barrel awning does come over the top and cover that. So it would be pretty crucial for us to be able to have a awning, that awning in particular. I think one of the questions was, why wouldn't we be able to remove that and put more of the traditional triangular awning? And quite honestly, it would cost about $30,000 for me to do that. And I don't have the money to do that, along with all the money we're putting on the interior of the build out. Subject to any questions from anybody.
Anybody?
This is Tori Jennings. I do have a question. So I was contacted by Caravan Wine Shop and Mr. Cook. I don't know if you have spoken with them or Adam, if you have, because there were concerns about this barrel type awning blocking their shop and their signage. So since I love both of these businesses, and Mr. Cook, you know, I'm a strong proponent of what you do. I'm also a strong proponent of Caravan Wine Shop. So I just want to know if that discussion happened and has been worked out to everyone's satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to him before the meeting last month and came to an understanding, you know, that we did appreciate the fact that, you know, it could block portion of the view of their new establishment. He basically said that he would originally was going to say something until the last meeting, but after having a conversation with me and seeing what both of our businesses are able to provide each other, he was okay with the idea that we were just going to keep the original barrel type awning and just recover it.
Any other comments?
I'm just going to mention, I'm just really glad to see that somebody wants to do retail on the square and that you're a young person that's interested in putting those buildings back together. I also think because that awning, I mean, the structure is still good for you. I mean, down the line, it can always be changed because an awning is removable. So I think that you're doing a really good job. It's really nice to see.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anyone else have any comments?
I do have another question if no one
Sure.
else.
Go ahead.
So I think from the standpoint from the committee, I don't want to try to speak for everyone, but I think the consensus was we would like to see a traditional awning. But it may be price prohibitive. To staff, is there not grant funding that can make the traditional awning feasible in terms of facade grant? Or that's not a question you can answer.
I can answer that. We do allow folks to go above and beyond what's typically allocated for the facade grant program, and we do have additional funding aside. That does require an additional vote by the Common Council outside of this group as well. So I guess my only comment is it's part of the structure, but like signage or awnings or anything else, it's not a permanent fixture to the building. It is something that can be removed down the road if there's another user that comes in there, or if you know, Craig decides he wants to change his name to the Point Hostel Shop or something. I don't know, but the awnings are temporary in nature. They can come off, they can be replaced and moved, and so. I know I thought a lot about this since our last meeting, and that was one of the comments that I kind of conjured up after the fact was we're not impacting the physical historic structure itself, that this is a temporary structure that can be replaced and changed out over time if needed. So,
Well, I would argue it does change the aesthetics of the building from a historic, which is what we're supposed to be doing, is maintaining history. So I guess I didn't quite understand, Mr. Klosky, what your comment was about the money, the possibility of helping out Mr. Cook.
yeah, we do have funds set aside that we can go above and beyond the 30,000 that we've utilized in the past for kind of our cap for facade grants. Now, remember, if we go above and beyond that, that also does put additional financial burden on the applicant because there's additional funding that they have to come up with to meet that match requirement. And so that's something that this group should think about as well.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, if I could just say real quick, you know, that awning was approved by the city at one time back in the 80s to get put on there. And again, I get it, the 80s, decor changes. If the current condition of that awning looks horrendous to that building, after we purchased this building from the previous store down in that square, and if it doesn't get approved, you know, either we remove the awning or we leave it the way it is. And it's going to be disheartening only the fact that we're not going to have any other signage that we're going to be able to put on that building, because we're not asking for traditional sign because we don't want to anchor anything to the brick of the building. So, you know, I agree. I mean, down the road, when Falling Outfitters continues to grow like it has been, we have some additional money to change it to the more traditional triangular awning. I'd be happy to do that. But right now, even the matching funds right now, I mean, it's just tight. We're spending a lot of money on the build out right now to bring our store down to that square. Thank you for hearing me out.
Any other comments from the commission? Okay,
This is Mary. I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion and vote.
okay. Anybody else? Okay. A motion then to accept with the staff recommendations for Mr.
Tori
Cook's-
Jennings, Tori Jennings, I move to approve the awning at 904 Main Street with staff recommendation.
A second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. DeBusch, thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Cook, I think we're set.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, then we have another one from Mr. Cook for a facade improvement grant in the amount of roughly $2,400 to, should that be repaint as opposed to replant?
Correct.
Okay. Repaint accent colors and replace an awning at 904 Main. Mr. Cook or Mr. Kuhn want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll say one quick thing. After our last meeting in April, the applicant did provide a second bid for the awning work that's proposed from Durham, the $7,461.25. With that bid, that did not influence the 40% matching fund as part of the facade grant request. So overall, staff does recommend approval for the grant request in the amount of $2,423.03, subject to the conditions shown on your screen.
Comments from the commission? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion then to accept with staff recommendations the request from Mr. Cook.
I'll move to accept the staff recommendations.
Mr. DeBusch, thank you. Second, please.
Second, Tori Jennings.
Tori Jennings, thank you. A second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
Okay, that number 14, amending local boundaries, district boundaries. Adam?
Yeah, thank you. So one of the discussions that the commission had last week was a continuation of some of the goal setting sessions that we've had back in the winter and early spring. But one of the discussions that was had was better understanding what sort of approval process takes place for amending an existing local historic district boundary. So after the meeting, staff have done some research, taken a look at what sort of approval process is necessary. So included in the agenda packet outlines just very plainly what the approval process would be. So the first of which would be ultimate review and a vote from this commission. Now, this does require a Class 1 public hearing where it would have to meet applicable, or would have to meet the public hearing guidelines, plus the impacted properties, plus folks within a 200-foot buffer of these impacted properties would have to be notified for when the public hearing and subsequent vote would take place. Now, to kind of talk a little bit further about, what would be some of the discussions that would be had during the public hearing. So, as I included in the memo, some examples could be are the buildings added or removed as part of this district boundary? Do these buildings have historic or architectural significance that would warrant it being in a historic district, being subject to design review requirements that this commission regulates? So, and there's a plethora of other options that, we can go, quote unquote, more into the weeds as far as each individual property, what sort of building features do they have, things like that. But in general, it'll be more so, are these buildings worthy? Do these have historical or architectural significance? Following a vote, I think it's, I believe 30 days, no more than 30 days after the Historic Preservation Commission votes on the district amendment, the request subsequently then goes to the Plan Commission. Now, the Plan Commission review is a little bit different than what would be the focus that this commission would have. So, as outlined in the memo, each historic district here in the city has a historic preservation plan that's outlined within Chapter 22, and these are, I like to consider a historic preservation plan similar or akin to a neighborhood covenant for some of the subdivisions here in the city where, say the building of an accessory structure, for example, there are city zoning code requirements in order to build a structure, such as setbacks, height, items like that. However, though, there are restrictive covenants in place that add further design requirements or more aesthetic requirements, such as what type of siding would be used, what would be the roofing material. So a historic preservation plan would be akin to something like that, where there's specific guideline criteria that each historic preservation plan has. So as quoted, the first guideline that's in Chapter 22 states that all new structures shall be constructed to height visibly comparable with the building environment with which they are visually located. So one of the items that the Plan Commission would review, for example, is making sure that any additional lot properties that would be located, that would be included in a historic district, would it meet the criteria of the historic preservation plan? And would there be any deviations? Would there be any violations, or would any guidelines of the historic preservation plan be at odds with any zoning code requirements for the given parcels, or sign code, building code? So it'd be more so specific to planning and land use elements for these impacted properties, making sure that any design criteria would still complement and would not impede or violate rather any zoning code requirements. And then the last review process subsequently would be common council review and approval through a public hearing as well. And most likely the topics of discussion would probably be a culmination of all types of discussions had during Plan Commission, during the historic preservation review as well. One thing I should note before kicking it back to the commission for comment and discussion is that while this is a bare bones approval process for how to amend historic boundaries, or local historic boundaries here in the city, there are multiple steps that would occur prior to any public hearing being held. Now, for example, there'll likely be, if this is something that the commission would be interested in, having discussion only topics would likely occur, or even having stakeholder meetings would be a significant, would allocate a significant amount of time for something like this. So with that, I'll kick it back to the commission if there's any comments or questions for how the approval process is for amending a historic district, and we'll be happy to answer them for you.
Anybody have any questions?
This is Tori Jennings. So I'm assuming this is the way the steps the process has to be, because looking at this, thinking, okay, it goes from historic preservation to Plan Commission and then public hearing, I can just see the the no's, you know, and how difficult it would be to get anything accomplished. Maybe I'm being too much of a skeptic, but am I correct in understanding this is the process and you're explaining how it would be?
Correct. Yeah, this is the process that's outlined within chapter 22. And I think, you know, given that there are time restrictions as far as, like I mentioned before, within 30 days of a historic preservation vote on it, the Plan Commission has to take action on it. So that would be one of the things that, you know, if this is something that the commission is interested in, there would have to be some considerations made, making sure that, you know, the two bodies, Historic Preservation and Plan Commission, that discussion occurs beforehand, that we're in a good standing for when the time a public hearing is held, it's both done consecutively, so it would meet that 30-day time restriction.
So a follow-up question, do you, from a staff perspective, and I don't know if Director Konofsky is still on, from your positions, do you see something like this working? Can there be collaboration between Historic Preservation and Plan Commission and actually move things forward? Is that possible?
What I was getting, I guess, there would be collaboration amongst staff, making sure that, you know, as I mentioned before, there'd likely be, say, 1 or 2 discussion only agenda items during some Plan Commission meetings where we would, we as staff would bring up this discussion that of amending a local historic boundary, provide some clarity, you know, give some input as to what the commission is looking forward to or looking at doing. So there would be some background information given, but needless to say, there would be staff would have to work collaboratively amongst, you know, this commission and amongst the Plan Commission. So when the time comes that both commissions are in a good feeling, a good understanding for the request that's being brought before them, that we can do it, like I said, more in sync at the same time, so it would meet any of those requirements within chapter 22.
So what would be the first step?
So the first step, if the commission is would be of interest in this, would be identifying what properties, what area you would be looking towards, you know, adding or rescinding as part of a local historic district boundary. That would probably be the first step, identifying, being more specific towards the location, followed by specific properties, making sure, you know, taking a look at the intensive survey report, making sure that, you know, do these lots have architectural significance that would warrant it being in a historic district? Once that's done, most likely then staff would have some stakeholder interactions, you know, potentially seeing how everything shakes out in the summer, having some public engagement sessions potentially. That'd be some of the first steps. Like I said, identifying lots, identifying the specific location, and then having interactions with the public on that.
So say next month, excuse me, our meeting next month, could we begin that process and decide if we want to do this, that, or the other thing in terms of those districts you showed, the map we had last month?
If that's something that the commission is interested in, that's something that we can have at we can have a discussion topic about that the next time this commission meets.
Anybody have any comments on that? Yay or nay? No?
Well, I think we have to give it a try. I mean, Director Konofsky, I just see, you know, in this community, it's, you know, no. The no's are going to come out. That's what it is. Can we move beyond that? Is that possible? And if we don't do anything, nothing's going to happen, right? So it seems like we have to go ahead and try it. Director?
I certainly would agree with Tori.
Yeah, yeah, the community of no's. You know, in general, anything that involves additional restrictions or authorities of a governing body on private property is always a challenge, right? I mean, that's really what you're looking at doing by imposing additional local historic districts. The flip side of that is I think you also have people who reside within these local historic districts that do so because of the love of the home and the architecture. And so if there's an opportunity for us to do, say, I'm going to use the Sunset Fork Boulevard area as the example, reach out to those folks and do some public information sessions before we go through the public hearing process. One of the worst things about local government is that we send out public hearing notices, and that's the first time people are starting to hear about a proposed project or a proposed imposition of new rules and regulations on their property. And so if we can be proactive and have public information sessions, explaining to folks, this is how it could impact your property. These are things that you should be aware of through this, in a more informal session, as opposed to the formal public hearing, which I think scares a lot of folks as well. That could go a long way in preventing major pushback from appointed or elected officials. So, I think as the chair and Adam mentioned, identify in the next month the specific areas, and then work through the process itself, have some public information sessions. I was not here when we did the Clark, Maine historic area designation for the state and national, but I had a house in it, and I went to the public information meetings, and I thought they were super insightful, learning that, there is no local imposition on my property, but it's more for state and federal tax credits, things of that nature. So the more information we get out there before the formal process itself is going to go a long way.
And particularly if there's money involved, like you suggest.
Right.
I just have a comment because I live in the historic district. I was on the HPDR when it was created. And I know that certainly everybody that was on the commission at that point really wanted a soft kind of imposition of direction from the city. And we even commented on colors, that colors on a house can be easily changed down the line. So we talked about not doing the colors. And obviously in the interim, which I found out, later, that there have been multiple impositions on me and my property that I knew nothing about. And just asking a few people in the neighborhood, they didn't know about it. And I know at one of your meetings, I did mention the fact that, if I was going to change my siding, it's recommended, and I may have to go before the Common Council to override a decision here, that I would put wood back on my house. And I know that for awnings and some of those other kinds of things in your papers, because I read through them all the guidelines, it says that you can use modern materials, for awnings. They don't have to be canvas as they would have been long ago. But I think the imposition of some of the things that are in your guidelines are really over the top. And I would question now, whether I'd want to be in a historic district, because one of the purposes you have in your guidelines is to enhance the value of your property and to stabilize it. Well, you might stabilize it, but I'm not sure that if somebody read the guidelines, and understood what's being imposed, that they might back off and from buying the house. Because certainly on Clark Street, I'm on a busy street, and I get no tax benefit at all from this, and because I'm not really, an antique house, as far as credits, 20% credit is not all that much. And I don't know how many times I would get a credit on just painting my house, which is very expensive because of the lead thing. And I mentioned at your meeting, the last time we had it painted, It was over $20,000 because it has lead on it. And so I think that perhaps before you even consider another historic district, particularly in a residential neighborhood, that you look at your guidelines. I think maybe you should go through your guidelines and decide, do I really have to know what kind of a window is on the back of the house? You know, because these houses are not on national registers. My house is not on a national register. My neighbor isn't. I have next to me, I have a rooming house. I have a student housing across the street, you know, so, and again, these are vulnerable houses along here. And that's why, you know, we downzoned along the way because it was multifamily. We downzoned to 2-family. And I think obviously a lot of the people that bought the houses are interested in preserving them and want to have one of those houses that has more architectural detail and is distinctive. But I think perhaps you ought to look at your guidelines a little bit closer as far as what's being imposed on people. That's my opinion.
Anybody else?
District.
Oops, sorry. Anybody else?
I think that, you know, this is an issue that's come up a number of times in terms of other buildings that probably not so much in a residential area, probably primarily in commercial areas, that we've had some concerns about them being close to, or maybe whether they should be included in a historic district. So I think it's something that we should look at. I think we should always be looking at what the guidelines are. I think that, Carol, if you had been involved in this committee over the years, as I have been, my experience has been that there is, just as we've done with Mr. Cook, you know, we've been flexible with applying those guidelines when people have come before this committee, weighing those pros and cons in terms of what needed to be done in to strictly maintain a building. So, you know, I think this committee has been pretty fair in that, but I do believe that we've kicked this around a number of times, and I think we should begin to take a look at it. Whether we proceed with it or not, I don't know, but I think it's been something we've talked about a number of times. So,
any other comments? So I guess I would ask, should we go ahead next month and look at some of these and decide whether or not we're going to go with another district?
Yeah, I would ask that, you know, each commission member, you know, if that's of interest for you all, to think of, hone in on specific areas that's you would like added, either as a new locally recognized historic district or amending an existing local historic district, to bring forth to this commission the next time we meet, some ideas that you would like, and then like the chair mentioned, we can discuss.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, I guess that is the end of the meeting then. Thank you very much. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, we're adjourned.
None.
None? Adam, I do have a question for you after the meeting.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.